So in this video, we're going to go through Scorecard paid advertising best practices. There are 4 key best practices we're going to run through. These are things that our clients have found work really well for them when they're running paid ads. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a good idea of what a successful ad strategy looks like for promoting your scorecard and hopefully getting some leads from paid ads. So let's kick off with your audience. So first off, you want to plan out what audience you want to reach. So there are 3 main audiences that tend to work best for our clients when they run ads to their scorecards. So first off, hot audiences. So these are people who've shown intent. They know who you are, they know who your business are, and they've given off some buying signals. So for example, they might be on your mailing list, but you might not have their phone number or enough data to be able to have a sales conversation with them. Or they might have come through to a product or service page, but not giving you their contact details. So they've given off some intent that they're interested. Remarket to these audiences in ad platforms like Facebook with ads directing people through to your scorecard. And you'll typically see that you get a lot of conversions or a high level of conversions for the size of your audience. The audience itself tends to be pretty small because they are so kind of determined that you've determined them so much as being interested in your business and giving off some buying signals. So they tend to be quite small. So careful not to serve them ads too many times, which is referred to as frequency in ad platforms, which is just the number of times you serve them ads, because it's easy to spam them because they tend to be quite small audiences. They also tend to be quite expensive to reach. But once again, they also tend to be high converting, so a nice payoff there. Second, you've got warm audiences. So warm audiences are audiences that, for example, have engaged with your organic socials and know who you are, know who your business are, but again, you haven't got their contact details. So targeting these audiences is a great strategy when marketing with your scorecard, because they tend to be very likely to click through, fill in your scorecard and convert into a lead and give you the relevant details so you can contact them and have a sales conversation. They also tend to be relatively expensive to reach because they're a small audience. And again, because they're relatively small, you just need to be careful with your ad frequency so you're not serving them ads too many times. Finally, you've got cold audiences. So scorecards are a great way of getting in front of cold audiences with a message that tends to resonate really well with them. So cold audiences are audiences that have a particular interest or have a particular demographic or work in a certain industry. It's anyone who is in your target audience, really, but that doesn't already know about you or very loosely knows about you. They haven't really engaged with you and given off any buying signals at all. So they tend to be quite large audiences, but they tend to be also relatively mid to low converting. They're cheap to reach normally, and there's normally plenty of scale. But the beauty of scorecards targeting these audiences is that you're immediately introducing the brand with something of high value to the audience. So you're immediately saying, take this test, take this scorecard, take this assessment, and benchmark yourself or self-diagnose a problem or learn something you didn't already know about yourself or your business. So it's a really nice way of serving ads to these audiences, a really nice way of introducing your brand in a way that is likely to get a good reception. The second best practice is to set a budget and clear KPIs. So set a budget. Make sure you allocate a specific budget to testing your ads to figure out whether they're going to work for your business or not. So run at least a couple of $100 at absolute minimum across a few weeks. The reason it's important to allocate a reasonable amount of budget to this is to give the ad platforms the opportunity and the chance to find the people that are most likely to take the actions that you want them to take. In other words, to complete your scorecard and to become a lead. So it takes a bit of spending, it takes a bit of time for the ad platforms to find people that are likely to take the action that you want them to take. So ensuring that you set a specific budget upfront and a specific time frame in which you're going to run that budget is really important to setting yourself up for success when you run ads. Secondly, setting really clear key performance indicators and ideally trying to figure out what is allowable cost per lead for your business before you start running your campaigns. So an allowable cost per lead is how much you're willing to spend, how much you're happy to pay for each lead that you get from your scorecard. So a great way of figuring this out, if you do have the relevant information, is figuring out how much on average a client brings in revenue, or a rough estimation of how much each client brings you, and then how many leads it normally takes you. Again, it can be just anecdotal, how many leads it takes you to convert a client. So it might be 10 leads to one client. That will enable you to work back and figure out a allowable cost per lead, or a rough allowable cost per lead. It's important to try and set that at the highest amount that you possibly can, to give your ads the opportunity and the chance of succeeding. The chances are, if you get anywhere near your allowable cost per lead with your ad campaign, you're going to get to a position where you come right under that allowable cost per lead, because the way ad platforms work is they tend to get better over time. Your campaigns tend to work better over time, particularly in self-service platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Ads. Those kind of platforms tend to get better at identifying the people that are likely to take the actions that you want them to take, in this case, completing a scorecard. So the third best practice is tracking and setup. So ensure that when you set your campaigns up and you set your ad platforms up, that your ad platform can track all the way through to the completion of the scorecard, so the results page. The reason you want to do this is, number one, you want to be able to report on how many people saw your ad, clicked on your ad, and then went all the way through to the end of your scorecard and became a lead. And also you want to be able to optimize towards conversions. So you want to, when you set your campaigns up, you want to set them up to say to the ad platform, so Facebook, for example, could you please give me the maximum number of leads rather than the maximum number of people on the landing page. So you want to set your campaigns up to maximize conversions rather than maximize traffic, for example, to your landing page. This will set you up to generate the best possible results for your ad campaign. The fourth best practice is to plan to test. So plan to run tests in your ad campaigns. So first off, test different ad platforms. So test Facebook versus LinkedIn versus Google Search versus any other ad platform you'd like to test out, where your audiences are hanging out and where you know they're likely to be receptive to this kind of thing, taking a test, an assessment, a benchmark, a scorecard. Secondly, testing different audiences. So often this is where the maximum performance is derived, by testing different audiences against one another. So we already talked in the beginning about hot audiences and warm audiences, which tend to work really well. But from a cold audiences perspective, testing people who are interested in something that's relevant to what your business does, but multiple different interests, segment them out and run them in different ad sets and different ad groups to test which performs best. Often there's a big disparity between the performance of different interests and different audiences and different demographics and different people that have taken different behaviors. So make sure you try and test as many different audiences as possible to establish which is performing best, which is engaging with your ads best, and what is delivering the best cost per lead for you. Different ad creative is the third element here. Ensuring that you test different ad creative is really important. Look at ads that perform well on the platform that you're going to run on. So go on Facebook, for example, go on Instagram, go on LinkedIn, wherever else you're going to run ads. Have a look at the ads you're being served and figure out which ones that attract you, and try and create something similar to that. We're going to come on in a second to some ad creatives that have worked really well. So to give you some kind of food for thought there. But ensure that you're testing at least 2, absolute minimum, 3 ideally, far more in an ideal world, but initially in your first test, 2, 3 is great, to ensure that you're giving people different creatives to potentially engage with and figure out which works for your audience. The same applies to ad copy. So the text that goes along with your ads and the headlines, test 2 or 3 different ad copy options to figure out what works for your audience. So that leads us on to some examples of what's previously worked well for clients of ours. So this business set up a scorecard and run ads to cold audiences. So these are cold audience ads. And as you can see, they're very engaging. The one on the right is focused very much on actually on the left as well, is focused very much on outcomes. So what someone gets when they complete your scorecard, and they're focusing on what they can deliver and what happens when someone completes the scorecard and what you get once you've answered their questions. So get more leads, make more sales, take our free scorecard to receive a lead generation report tailored to your business. You know exactly what that is. Similarly, on the left hand side there, take our free lead generation health check. Right, I'm going to find out what state my lead generation is in very, very quickly. Fantastic. Like very clear, concise adverts with eye-catching imagery, very well executed. Secondarily here, rather than focusing on outcomes, this brand is focusing on pains and problems that they know their audience are having. So 50% plus of homeowners are paying hundreds more than they need to each month. So engaging people with eye-catching imagery and with a really compelling message, and then saying take the test and explaining what that test is. So two really good examples of what's worked for clients of ours when they run ads. If you've got any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact our support team.